So the next little skill we were going to work on for our lovely is doing a little bit of loose leash walking. So I'm just going to let her drag her gear for a second. So sometimes if your puppy starts to associate the leash with we're always going outdoors or going for a walk, is then the leash can start to equal some excitement or some anxiety or a little trail mix of emotions. I would start practicing, sometimes even having the gear on, and you're just hanging out in the house doing a few easy skills. Remember, think about your home as almost like the classroom setting where things are much more attainable, they're not as stressful, they're not as overexciting, and there's no like triggers in the environment. So if let's say new people or new animals or things like that are very exciting, we want to make sure that when we're first starting off, we're not going right into that environment to practice. So right here, I'm just going to do a little positive interrupter, nice feeder for that lovely little check-in. If, for example, your lovely likes to work on the left or the right, whichever side is good for you, I would recommend that if, let's say, she tends to be a bit of a puller, is to start practicing loose leash walking in your home or in your yard or both. So because if you're going for the real world walk, and let's say Miss Lovely is very excitable or gets very easily distracted, we want to, and I'll email this as well to the whole group, is you want to make sure that you're working in what I consider the green zone, where things are very easy, very comfortable. She's still taking food and she's very responsive. If your puppy is going from the green zone to more of the yellow, I do like to think about it almost like the set of lights. So if yellow is caution, she's not quite as focused, she's not really taking food as well, there is a bounce back, but she's not completely gone. Red would be, for example, your babe is having a really hard time. Yes, nice job, cuteness. So remember, your leash is more, again, like your training wheel. She says, I don't like all my snacks. She's not always going for her kibble, but that's okay. So let's say, for example, your leash should not be the thing that creates the behavior. A lot of times we're looking to the gear to stop a skill we don't like. The problem there is either you'll always need that to sort of tell the dog, no, thank you, or the problem is most dogs will start to pull into gear. She's like, hold on, lady, this is tickling. So if your dog gets in the habit of pulling equals more fun, more exploration, more sniffing, then by accident, you are teaching that pulling is very reinforcing and we should do more of it. So I tend to like to hold my gear with my leash with the little loop through my thumb. If you're worried about losing your babe, there are some other options, but I don't really love wrapping it around your wrist and then wrapping the leash around your hand. It's a really great way to get injured. You could then break your wrist or get pulled down the stairs if it's a slippery scenario. So I think it's sometimes at best to be able to relinquish the leash for a second and then reset up the situation you were trying to work on. So let's say with my lovely lady, if she works on the left or the right, either side is fine. But, oh, she's like, lady, I don't love that one so much. We'll have to maybe grab some nice stinkier snacks. So for the lovely lady, we would want to practice, and sorry, my neighbors are doing some moving around in the building, so she might hear the trucks wiggling. I like to recommend either left or right for your babe, but then what I'd recommend is if, let's say your puppy is working on your left side, you want to hold your gear in the right side. I like to have my leash nice and relaxed. Chewing is optional, she says. So my leash is relaxed, and what I mean by that is that there's not constant tension from her or from me. If, let's say, she goes and pulls ahead, I would recommend to do a little U-turn and feed again when she's by your side. So I'm going to grab some of the stinkier snacks that she likes a little bit better. So in the beginning, we might be doing what's called luring. So luring, again, is you're using the lure, almost like the fish with the hook and the worm, to lure your babe to follow the food into the position or into the skill that you're hoping for. If, let's say, in the beginning, she's doing great with luring, that's awesome, but you want to make sure to fade out the lure as quickly as you can. So because what happens, a lot of times people say, well, my puppy only pays attention when the food is right in my hand or when the food is up against her nose. So that's very typical, but then you'd want to go from luring into feeding for the right behavior right after the fact. So what I mean by that is if, let's say, my food was always in my hand, and that's how we start with a target hand to get the behavior we're hoping for, eventually that hand would get faded out, and maybe my hand is behind my back, and as Miss Lovely is next to me, I go, yes, and I feed for that. But my food is not the thing creating the behavior by always being by her sniffer and getting that focus. So, but remember, in the beginning, if we don't know how to read, we got to start off with our ABCs first, which means we might start off with making this really easy and making it attainable and fun. So we're creating, again, this really great bank account of behavior happening this way means you get something that you're also really liking and enjoying. So for right now with Miss M, I'm feeding her pretty rapid fire. So what I mean by that is if your rate of reinforcement is really low, your dog may not find this skill to be appealing. So remember, if you worked a 40-hour work week, and she's like, guys, I'd rather be a naked woman. She probably would rather take her brassiere right off. So, but if let's say you're working and you've done a 40-hour work week and your boss is like, wow, you did such a great job, high five, you'd be like, where's the money? So remember that I'm not saying that 24/7 will you be feeding your pups until they turn into roly-polies or until they have a tummy upset. But remember that a lot of times, all these skills are very much so like work for your dog. There's very little value in what they might find appealing and what we're asking. So to make these things seem valuable, we have to pair it with things the dogs find reinforcing. So this could be, again, for most of them, food is what finds most babes to be very highly reinforcing. For other dogs, it could be play or toy drive as well. So you can see as my lovely, the rate of reinforcement is nice and high because we're creating a really nice big chunk of change that's being added to this bank account. So if I lose her, I'm just going to regain her attention. I'm going to see if we can go ahead and we'll try a little bit, nice job, cuteness, from the other direction. So you guys can see her as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let's pretend she prefers the right side versus the left. I like to get my dogs comfortable doing both sides because a lot of times if let's say there's something yucky on the roadway, maybe there's glass or there's roadkill or something gross, you can then go ahead and have your puppy switch sides and go from there. So I do also highly recommend for equipment is to use a treat pouch. And the reason behind that is if you're not necessarily have a treat pouch, you may not be able to handle all your snacks, the leash, and many different things. And she's like, oh, I got to go find those find-its now from earlier. So I do highly recommend a treat pouch or a fanny pack or something like that. And you could be working throughout the day for a few minutes at a time with your babe, even off their gear. Like let's say we were in the house and work some of these skills. So the reason I recommend to practice with gear and then sometimes off of gear is it lets your dog become comfortable generalizing these skills, but the skills are not always paired with just a certain set of equipment. So now we could do the exact same thing again and then feed the lovely lady for when she's by my side. So again, I kind of get her attention for right now on the hand. My lure is kind of helping her stay next to my side, and then we work it that way. Another great exercise would be to, for example, be just meandering in your home or in your yard. If your yard is not fenced or she has a hard time coming back when called, so working recalls, she's like, guys, I really would rather take a naked moment. So we might also find that if she's not a huge fan of this harness, I will, again, send more resources about what a Y-shaped harness is like. And again, why that might be even more comfortable for her than the one she's right now currently wearing. Again, no pressure to change, but just remember that the way the harness sits, it will affect her movement, which could cause arthritic issues or spinal issues. Or in general, just conformation problems, because as she's moving in a certain way, her legs are then compensating. So almost view it like you're wearing shoes, like one shoe that's too small or one shoe is a higher shoe than the other. Your gait is going to start to get affected, and then you might start with back pain or joint issues. So dogs sometimes will hide ailments or pain. But then as they mature and get older, it starts to really come out, and sometimes it can even come out with overexuberance or even reactivity. So about 80% of reactivity cases are stemming from a place of ailment, which could be as simple as a GI issue. It could be as simple as allergies, so skin irritation, ear infection, toothache, but it could also be my joints hurt. And therefore, when we see something, as opposed to doing okay with it, they might actually become more sensitive because of the way their body is feeling. So she, again, no pressure to change up gear, but we may find a Y-shaped harness, and there's many brands out there, so I can give you more info. Might be a better option for her, so it's not all about the gear trying to change behavior for her. Nice job. Good job. So, but another way to practice this loose leash walking, which I did a little bit earlier with some of the other pups, is you would be meandering through your home, and anytime your lovely lady comes and reorients to your side or soft next to you, feed for that. So what we're teaching her is that coming back to this bubble has value. So what you're starting to do is create this ability to reorient back to you from the environment, but also creating value in being by your side, which for most dogs seems a bit silly because it's more fun to explore, sniff, and play than it is to be sort of going so slow next to your lovely caregiver at times. So, but for our lovely Miss M, I think she did a splendid job for her very first day. We will keep rehearsing and practicing some more of these behaviors. Too, on Thursday when she comes, I'll also have my little human child with me. So Ebba is my 4-year-old. She will be joining me. On Tuesdays right now, Grandma comes to visit, so she is home with her for now. But on Thursdays, we will still have her available so we can practice some of these setups with the actual human distraction. But for now, remember, think, what would I rather versus scolding or getting agitated, ready, sit, with things she doesn't know how to do already. So for now, when in doubt, if your baby's giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. But also make sure that if she's unable to do the situation because it's out of her comfort range or out of her skill set, give her an option that's easier that you would rather have her do than the jumping on the company or on your daughter. So nice. So for right now, she's been doing a great job. She's very soft. And part of it is also getting her to the point where she's now mentally and physically connected and is not so overexcited. Nice job, cuteness. We'll give our lovely Miss M a little breather. She did a splendid job with some of her practice, and we'll keep rocking and rolling with some of these skills as we're progressing. Good job, Miss M.